tell you that I could not be any more proud to be associated with legal aid and to have been associated with legal aid for my entire legal career of 22 years. The people that are behind this organization, the people that come in every day, the people that run this organization, Barbara Buckley, the entire staff, all of the lawyers in our community. This is an organization that has been uplifted by our community, and in turn, I think we have done or tried to do our best to give back to the community. And I'm very excited about this new chapter in our steps to embrace our community and continue that relationship. Among those people that I think make this organization great are so many of our board members who are here today. Marissa Rodriguez, Betsy Ward, Paul Martin, Liz Nelson, Steve Martino, Mona Cavey, our general counsel, Dan Waite, and our former longstanding general counsel, Rob Peak. These are some of the folks that run behind the scenes and help really direct a lot of the organization's purpose. I am also very proud and excited to recognize our former board member, who's now Nevada Supreme Court Justice Patty Lee. Talk about an incredible legal career and a door opener. Patty Lee is certainly one of those Nevadans. I'm also pleased to see Councilwoman Olivia Diaz, Councilman Brian Knudsen, Senator Marilyn Dondero-Liu, and Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe Moreno. And thank you to the Office of the Council of Mexico, my home country, and Sylvia Romero, for attending here today. The legal aid began in 1958. At that time, the efforts were small. This room was a lot smaller. The people that were in this room were really a small bunch of folks, but they were dedicated attorneys. And it was at the center of that was Bill Boyd. And Bill Boyd seems to be at the center of a lot of things, and is certainly somebody that not only the law school bears his name, but I think his footprint in the community runs deep, and it certainly runs deep here. And it started with Bill urging his colleagues to take cases for those who could not afford an attorney. And it's not lost on this organization that in the criminal system, the Constitution gives you a right to counsel. But it does not do that in civil cases. And a lot of people don't understand that in civil cases, it affects the lives of people much in the same way, if not sometimes more significantly than criminal cases. It can put people out of their homes, it can separate families, it can devastate somebody economically, so much so that it will impact their lives forever. And Bill Boyd understood that, and our attorneys understand that, our community understands that, and our mission here understands that. And as Jason said, justice is not about putting people always behind bars. It's about what's fair. It's about what people need. It's about the victims. What is just for the victims? And I think that that's a great acknowledgement to our continued evolution. Today, thank you to many of you who are in this room. Legal Aid is continuing that tradition with our Justice and Advocacy Center. Last year, we provided assistance to over 189,000 individuals, and that number continues to grow. We devote a lot of our resources to victims of crime. We represent every single child in foster care. We represent survivors of domestic and human trafficking. We represent the elderly and children who are exploited under guardianship. I was just talking to Genevieve, who's an attorney here for the adult guardianship program. We're talking about that, and that Nevada is the only state that ensures that and protects that right of adult guardians and gives them a representation in court, representing the victims, standing up for the victims. Wherever there's a community crisis or our organization is asked to help, and I'm proud to say that Legal Aid always steps up. 6 years ago, Clark County asked us to step up and assist them in organizing the survivors in response to the October 1 shooting, and we have done that and continue to do that. And to speak more about that, I'm proud to introduce and thankful to introduce Chief John Steinbeck, Fire Chief of Clark.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being here for this incredibly worthy endeavor. Really appreciate it. I see some faces here that have worked so hard on this over the years. My heart goes out to my heartfelt thanks. Jason, Barbara, and Max here as well. I appreciate it. We'll talk a little bit about that night, so I will get choked up because I was not too much, of course. But I'm not going to talk about it too much, but somewhat just to let you know how this kind of came about. So we prepared for an incident for years, all the way back really. I can remember things changing within the fire department following 9/11 as we really started to prepare for mass attacks here in the valley. Really another one that was a really big turning point for us was Mumbai. Complex coordinated attack and really changed the way that we were going to go ahead and have command and control into resources and rescue task forces and all of those things. So I spent years as really at the tip of that spear in some ways on the fire side of it, on the emergency management side of it, working with law enforcement on that side of it. And we did talk about support services, but it was always the secondary discussion. It always was, and that's a mistake. And so since this incident, I've spent the last 6 years going across the country when invited to talk to communities about that focus. At the time of that shooting, and we had 58 deaths at that time, over 800 wounded, over 22,000 people scattered, certainly terrified for that evening and much longer. I was at home, it was 10 o'clock at night. I was trying to put my youngest son, who was 4 at the time, to bed. 10 o'clock at night, don't judge me. I was trying. And, I got the text that came across, and this showed and it said shots fired at the music festival. And quite frankly, I've gotten a lot of texts like that, and I still do, right? And they de-escalate their mistakes. We take a look at them, we come across, we jump into action, we go, we start right away, and you find out it was something else that made the noise, or it was a single shot, which isn't good, but so different, right? So many different things. And so as I turned on the radio and jumped in the car and started going, this incident wasn't de-escalating, it was escalating. Everything about it was just growing and growing and growing. And by the time I got in, we didn't know how many incidents we had. Of course, they were coming across, victims were running to different properties. We thought we had 16 different incidents at the same time, at one point in time. And so we opened up what we call the Multi-Agency Coordination Center, and I'm the commander in that center. And that's where I spent the rest of that evening, was coordinating activities for that. But right away, we do start the recovery process immediately. And that's different people that are not focused on the incident. And so we did start that right away. The incident, from my standpoint, of course, the shooting was different. And I'm sorry for the people that I'm bringing this up to here today. I apologize for that. The shooting incident, as far as operations, was over 9 hours. The 9 hours, the operations portion of it was done, and then turned it over to the investigation side. But the recovery portion we knew would last for years. And so immediately we opened up what we call the Family Assistance Center. It also served somewhat as reunification, and unfortunately as a notification center. And I was in co-command at that location with our coroner until the notifications were completed. We saw evil that night. There's no other way to put it. We just saw absolute evil without really a motive other than evil. And the only thing we could ever had someone that wanted to inflict suffering. So our goal from that point on was to relieve suffering. That was our mission. That's what it is moving forward. And so that was the focus of the Family Assistance Center. We couldn't change what had occurred. The injuries were being treated, the hospitals were taking care of the injured, and certainly there was going to be long-term care, but we couldn't change any of that. But if somebody came in the door, how could we assist? So in our briefings every day, we had our core responsibilities, but we certainly, at the top of it, let's solve a problem. We come in, if we can solve a problem, let's solve a problem. And let's lessen the suffering, lessen the aggravation. Try to assist in any way. In some ways we were successful, in some ways we failed. But it certainly wasn't problematic. At the Family Reunification Center, and believe me, while I was in command there were so many people that we counted on and that did such a great job. The person that's always to my right is Misty Richardson. She's sitting over here. She solved so many different problems. She's always there. She was there that night, of course. I brought in 2 fire captains, and they said, I don't even know what a Family Assistance Center is. I said, I don't need you to. I need you my instant command of the center, right? And so we were successful on that. But the services that we were looking for was counseling, spiritual care, personal effects return. I could talk for hours and hours about that. Non-cash donations, right? To try to keep any contention out of that. Lodging, transportation, identification services, social services. But then we got to where we wanted to be able to offer victims of crime benefits and have a one-stop spot for that. And legal aid. So we had legal aid set up and immediately be able to counsel people, because when we were looking at the victims, you look at okay, who's the most injured right away, who's the most impacted, right? And that's what we want to go ahead and focus our resources on. But then from that, where else is it affected? And so a lot of people lost their businesses, lost their, weren't able to make their rent, had all types of problems, especially with losing their ID and losing all those different things. And so, Barbara, thank you for the assistance that was given there in the Family Assistance Center. And we did have some experts come in from across the nation. 2 agencies I'll always be completely grateful to is the Red Cross and the FBI. I've worked with many of these. The FBI has robust victim services that don't get enough credit. And so they said, Chief, you can't maintain this Family Assistance Center for more than 2 weeks. I said, well, what happens after that? Right? We can't tell people they're okay in 2 weeks or we're done. And they said, we just have to figure out something else long term. So immediately we started thinking, okay, we're going to need something long term. We need more of a resiliency center. We proved them wrong. We kept it open for 3 weeks because we weren't going to close one door without opening up another. And so it started 24 hours a day. Our people were exhausted, but that's how it had to be. And so we opened that up, and then we moved over to a building. It's great to be in. The one thing is when you declare an emergency, all the procurement rules are up. And so it takes us years to build. We can build it next, right? And so we got a center built up, right? And so, and it was very effective. But then, I'm the fire chief, I'm not supposed to run that, right? And there's no way we were going to keep that. And so we had, of course, social services was assisting us, but we turned to our friends here at Legal Aid, and they've taken it to the next level, and have done an amazing job. And I'm really just so incredibly proud of where this is going right now. Because the vision was, at that point in time, wasn't for us to provide aid to people at that moment. It was to be available when they needed it. I can't determine that. Some people came into the Family Assistance Center, they wanted to talk right away. Some people got on planes and left. We had people from every state, countries all over the world. Some have come back and talked to us, some never will, of course. Some people went in and locked at their doors and didn't come out for weeks or months. And when it's ready, and they need assistance, is when we need it. And so that's why this is so vital and important in I appreciate everybody here for this support. So the other important thing about this center is that night we were improvising a lot of our resources, bringing together the right people, but without a coordinated playbook. Now we are prepared, and what I preach to other communities is to be prepared for when this evil hits your door, because it does, it has. Now we can surge, and we can have the right things in place, and we're better prepared if something else occurs, and it has, and it will, that we can lessen suffering more efficiently. And that's important. So a lot of people ask me many times, I've been to, of course, went to 9/11, I saw that. And I've been to floods all over, I've been to fires, I've been to earthquake, places that are suffering from earthquakes and mass shootings, of course. And they'll say, Chief, what's the worst disaster? The worst disaster is the one that happens to you, right? So as a single family that suffers from violent crime, it's as impactful to that family as a mass shooting is to the community and to all of us. And so that's why I'm really proud and excited about the new mission that we have here. So, Tennille, thank you for the great job that you're doing here. Can we give her a round of applause? So the first year as the VSRC's helped over 7,000 people. That's going to only grow more and more and more. In 2021, we had the Department of Justice Victim Services Award. Very excited about that. In 2023, the Congressional Crime Survivors and Justice Caucus Alike Professional Award. The FAC that we ran, although not well planned in the front side of it, at the end of it became a national model. I believe this is going to be the same. I believe it already is. I believe that they're going to look towards Vegas. Well, I'm not sitting here just a second. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that now. But the VSRC will now provide assistance to any survivors of violent crime and stands ready to respond to another mass casualty incident. The VSRC will now be known as the Resiliency and Justice Center. This is and will be a national model to serve those in need. It's here in the greatest city. So I'm excited about that. Next, you'll be hearing from Congresswoman Dina Titus. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for your support. And may God bless you, and thank you for the work you're doing and we need to continue.
Hello, I'm Dina Titus, your Congresswoman for Nevada's 1st District in the heart of Southern Nevada. I want to thank the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada and their amazing Executive Director, Barbara Buckley, for inviting me to virtually address supporters today and uplift the launch of the Capitol campaign for the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center. I just wish I could be there in person, but I'm in Washington this week. On October 1st, 2017, Las Vegas faced a devastating tragedy. It was the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. The world watched in disbelief as our community grappled with the unimaginable loss of 58 lives and the profound impact it had on survivors, first responders, and the families of victims. It was during those dark days that the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada emerged as a beacon of hope and partnered with Clark County to create the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center. They offered behavioral and mental health resources, legal services, guidance for the FBI processing, and financial support for those in need. Their efforts set a standard of compassion, resilience, and unity that really inspired the whole nation. In the years that followed, the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center became a model for cities across the country dealing with mass hardship and seeking ways to heal and rebuild. It was really a privilege for me to witness this remarkable work firsthand as my office collaborated with them, and I knew that we had to ensure their continued success. That's why I secured $3 million to aid in the construction and design of a new facility for the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center to expand the programs and services provided by the Legal Aid Center to support the victims of the 1 October shooting and other victims of crime. This new facility for the Vegas Strong Center will be more than just a building. The center is a place of healing, support, and hope for all who seek refuge within its walls. And it serves as a testament to our community's strength. The Legal Aid Center's dedication to the survivors, the families who lost loved ones, the brave first responders, and everyone who was forever changed by that fateful night. The Vegas Strong Resiliency Center has truly been a lifeline for our community and continues to stand as a symbol of our determination to survive and thrive. So now as we embark on this capital campaign, I call upon you, supporters and allies, to join in this mission. Thank you for your help, and may we always be Vegas strong.
Board, I'm Tim Sagerman, Clark County Commissioner, and I'm here to talk about the county and Barbara Buckley and basically introduce a video that's going to tell you why we're doing this. So before I do that, I want to just say a few words about Barbara, because none of us would be here but for Barbara. She's our center stone. We all tie into her. My personal perspective, my great grandfather was in the senator in the state legislature, voted against women's right to vote. His daughter, my grandmother, was a state assembly woman, so she kind of paid it back a little bit. My grandmother, Genevieve Sagerman, my mother, Genevieve Sagerman, was a state assembly woman, so she paid it back. But when I got to vote for Barbara Buckley as the first female speaker in the history of Nevada, then I thought, no, we can pay back our debt. So my grandfather, and my great grandmother, they were all around to say, I normally wouldn't say this with having a former speaker in the room, Jason, but Barbara is truly the best speaker in history. But having said that, we work so closely with Barbara and all her entities. Clark County would feel her partner, but she actually finds things where the government has fallen through. There's the cracks in society, people have never been protected, and she sees that and figures out a way to build around them to make sure that they are protected. So thank you so much for that, Barbara. Clark County is so proud to work with you. When you find something, we know it's going to be fantastic, and we want to always be supportive. So having said that, let's watch the video about why we're here. Thank you.
I was a mother of 3 children. Elsie is my only daughter. Raymond is my oldest son, and my youngest son, his name was Keith. So he was the one that was killed by the drunk driver. It was something that you never expect to happen. You know, you always expect your children to outlive you, but that didn't happen in my case. The lady that killed my son, she got mandatory 8 years. And one of the conditions of being released from parole and probation was you had to pay your restitution, and which she never did.
Imagine losing your son to a drunk driver and trying to advocate for yourself without an attorney in this very complicated legal system. You know, you can never replace a child, ever. And she's been fighting for 24 years to just get a semblance of justice.
Trying to work through a system that's broken and knocking on doors and going from place to place, and then actually coming here to legal aid. If it was not for legal aid in the governor's office, nothing would have been done. The whole point was just to not be a victim anymore. I was just tired of being a victim.
That year, it was 2012, April 16, 2012.
What happened was, Arturo, his wife and his 3 children were enjoying a quiet evening at home when an unknown intruder high on drugs broke into the home, and Arturo was attacked.
They find out 27 skull fractures I have on my skull, and my wife have 4 hammer shots and my daughter 3, and they obviously they die.
Probably the most horrific crime, that has ever happened in our community's history. One of the first legal issues that Arturo had to deal with is, where would he live? You can't possibly go back to your home with your 2 young boys to face that scene ever again. So then what do? We got him into a new place without having to worry about what to do about his mortgage. After his emergency surgery, he had to go to rehab to relearn how to talk and walk. And DFS moved in to take custody of the boys for foster care. And I intervened and said, these children do not belong in foster care. They have fit relatives.
I have no words. She was like I say, she's my guardian angel.
We can never make up for what some evil people do. Whether it was that night at Arturo's house, whether it was the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting. But what we can do is the day after, say we're here for you.
If you need help, I got your back. She got my back. She got my back.
Justice should not just be available to someone that can afford an attorney. Justice should be available to all who need it, who fight for it, and who deserve it. And Legal Aid Center Southern Nevada's, Advocacy and Justice Complex will be transformational for those who can't afford an attorney. The Legal Aid Center is like a light in a very dark world.
Without justice, crime echoes through generations. Anyone can face unimaginable grief due to crime at a moment when they least expect it. It is virtually impossible to put one foot in front of the other when facing that grief and begin to deal with issues like insurance denials and navigating probate, eviction, where you might live due to loss of income. It can all be too much without help, without hope. For decades, Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada has devoted the majority of our resources to survivors of crime. We started representing our first child who was abused over 20 years ago, and now represent 4,000 children every day who are in our foster care system. In response to a community scandal, we began representing the elderly who were being exploited in guardianship actions, losing their liberty and their life savings. We then expanded to representing children without parents in the guardianship action to prevent their exploitation. And we stepped forward on October 2nd to join this community, to join Clark County in providing services through the Family Assistance Center and the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center. We now face a critical juncture. In the past 10 years, we have quadrupled the number of clients we serve, expanding to serve every child in foster care, everyone over whom guardianship was sought, survivors of violent crime through the Resiliency Center. For that reason, we are announcing that we are constructing a new Advocacy and Justice Complex right across the street from these headquarters, where the U.S. Bank branch still stands, but once operated. This new complex will be home to the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center, which will now be known as the Resiliency and Justice Center. Our Family Justice Project, serving survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. Our Guardianship Advocacy Project, designed to protect the elderly and children from exploitation. This new complex will allow us to create a one-stop shop operation for survivors of crime. On the first floor, the newly rebranded Resiliency and Justice Center will be available, and all survivors, victims of crime, can be triaged and helped with emergency navigation services. Applications for the State of Nevada Victims of Crime program, which most victims of crime do not know about. A connection with mental health resources, legal aid services, all given by our team or by our co-located partners. The second floor will have our Family Justice Project, and the third, our Guardianship Advocacy Project. Those needing legal assistance, such as the domestic violence victim and our children, will then be able to meet with dedicated legal aid staff for representation. It will be a holistic approach never before provided in our community. It will be a national model in best practices and will transform the landscape of victim services in Nevada for decades to come. All great projects are created by a team. I'd like to thank and acknowledge our Vegas Strong Resiliency Center team, led by Tennille Pereira, our Family Justice Project team, led by April Green, our Guardianship Advocacy Project, led by Deborah Bookout, our partners at Clark County, Chief Steinbeck for your vision, Misty Richardson, Abby Friars, and Larea. We have so many of our strong partners here today. Our partners at the State of Nevada, Richard Whitley, the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, is here today. Key legislators, Senator Marilyn Dondero Luke, who led the charge for funding for this new center, along with Majority Leader Ken Azzaro. Assemblywoman Chandra Summers Armstrong was supported by our speaker, Steve Yeager. Thank you all so much for being here today. Governor Sisolak and Lombardo, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, the 8th Judicial District Court, Steve Grierson, U.S. Bank, and Clark Wood, who gave us that land across the street at a deep discount to see this vision happen. We are so grateful. Our partners at the City of Las Vegas, and I thank Councilwoman Olivia Diaz, we sit in her district, for all of the city's support. Our longtime supporters, financial supporters, Boyd Gaming, Boyd Foundation, Caesars, Ellis Landau, David Belding, Chris Engelstad, so many are here today. Without their support, we would not have built this strong organization. Our staff who are all here, our board of directors who all are here. I'd like to acknowledge Peggy Selesner, did I say your name right this time, who's on our campaign committee, and most of all, our survivors who we are honored to serve. And I'd like to thank you, Denise, for participating in the video and for being here today and sharing your story. Arturo called me last night. He was going to be here, but he's a foreman and one of his crew was injured. And so he had to take him for care today. Always helping, always helping. The new center will cost $30 million to construct. So far, we have raised $21 million. 12.5 million came from government, from our federal government, from our state ARP dollars, general fund dollars, local government dollars. I see our treasurer here, Zach Conine. Thank you so much for all you did with our ARP dollars to make sure they truly go to help the community. We've also received generous contributions, early contributions. We received $5 million from the Engelstad Family Foundation and $3 million from Mary Kay Cashman. And we're just beginning. We're just beginning today. We know that when something important is needed for this community steps up. We know this will become a reality, and we are going to break ground in the early part of 2024. Without justice, crime echoes through generations. With your help, we can rebuild lives through our new Advocacy and Justice Complex. Thank you so much for being here. Please join us in making this a reality. Thank you.